We're part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Well, good Saturday morning. We're going to start episode 143. We'll do a little drunk on the court after the commercial break. So if you're listening back on the podcast, episode 144 of Drunk on the Ice will be after. We're going to do a little double dose, kind of like we're in the building, both teams. Mark, we got to talk Sixers, bud, but how's it been? How you doing?
Been good, man. This is the we were just saying before we started, best time of the year, fall. Hoodie weather. If you're a sports fan, I got the Phil's hat on for playoffs and
Let's
coming
go.
up, and football's in full swing. College football's in full swing. We got Sixers coming back, NBA's coming back, the NHL is coming back, the Flyers are coming back. This is the best time. So
It literally just everything converges in October.
yeah,
And I feel like we say it every year, but like, if you're a sports fan and you can't find something to watch, like you need a different remote.
yeah,
You need a Siri. You need something to just remind you when these things are.
yeah,
And like, even last night, like, I had all intentions during the day, right? Sit down, watch the Phillies game, but have the Flyers game on, just kind of, check in, pay attention. And then when the news comes out early in the afternoon when the Phillies game is going to get pushed to today, doubleheader. They're playing the Mets, which for all intentions really doesn't matter to anybody.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. I get to watch the Flyers solo, volume on, like dialed in.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and we'll talk about this afterwards
Sure.
in the second half, but like, that was a really entertaining game
It
for
was.
a preseason hockey game.
Yeah, well,
But as far as the Sixers, it's been a kind of off season. And we've
Yeah.
talked about this before, but let's just start with the big news that drops this week with Dame.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
the Bucks was a team that I never saw coming.
No. I thought for sure that this Miami thing was gonna like materialize at
Mhm.
some point, whether it was the last couple weeks, like we were gonna hear something about that, or maybe it was gonna
Right.
run into the season, but Miami kind of seemed like the one place. And when Milwaukee came in and swept it, because I can't think of a better, you think about the kind of competitor Giannis is.
Right.
And like him and Dame seem to be cut from the same cloth. And it just, that seems like, it seems really good for the league. And, I can't think of a better spot for Dame to land if it wasn't Miami than to play with a guy like Giannis.
Right.
And, drunk on the court with the Sixers. I mean, we can't be happy about it. Now we're in an arms race. But
oh god, it feels like the meme with the guy. I think I posted it a little when the trade comes down, but the guy just sitting in his car, just like slowly rolling the window up.
yeah,
I'm like, I feel like as soon as I heard that news, I'm like, all right, there has to be another move for this year,
Yeah.
because if you don't make any moves this year, well, now you're talking about possibly being in the same situation that the Trailblazers were in this year, and possibly being in that same position with Embiid next year.
Yeah. Yeah. There was, too, it's like a lot of the stuff that's come out about Dame and the Damian Lillard and kind of how things went the last season with the
Mhm.
Blazers. I can understand, I can see both sides of that whole thing, I could see the Blazers like wanting to kind of, move in a different direction. Things haven't
Mhm.
been great there, even with Dame. And then on the players side of it, he's done everything that he can do on an individual basis for them.
Right.
And it's like some of the things that I saw, that's got to be tough for anybody. I'm sure it was tough for the Blazers to come to him at the end of the year and say, hey,
Yeah.
we're looking to play for a pick here. Can you, and then
Mhm.
when you think about the way Dame's wired and things like that, I'm sure he wants to be
Right.
out there playing. Can you sit out? We're looking to get this high pick here. And,
Right.
and then for Dame to say, well, I only want to go to Miami, or at least that's what it seemed like.
Right.
And until he kind of opened it up to some other options. But all around a really tough position, I think, for them to be in. But it
The
kind of,
only
yeah,
the only thing that gets me thinking about Milwaukee is that there's one ball.
right.
And Giannis is typically a guy that plays with the ball in his hands, right? We've seen countless amounts of times where he's bringing, he gets the rebound and goes end to end, you know, and you're also talking about Chris Middleton, right? He's a guy that's a catch and shoot guy that I'm looking at this going, I get it. The talent jumps off the table,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, there's only one ball, and both he and Dame are both ball dominant guys.
They
And I
are.
could see a situation where, one of them, and it could be a night to night basis, it could be a game to game basis, but one of them is going to have to relinquish some of that and almost kind of take a step back so that the other one can flourish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to have to be that way. Because as you said, there's only one ball out there. The really kind of interesting thing I think about it for me is like, I feel like with Giannis and Dame, like, I think they're both guys that above all else, they want to win. So like
Right.
they're willing to like, and that's where Dame's at this point in his career. I think that's why for a lot of the summer it was Miami or bust for him. It was
Right.
probably, the Heat culture element, the fact
Mhm.
that the Heat have been good the last couple years and he'll get a chance to compete for a championship. And then,
Right.
you know, like and he's like, when we think about like all the things that Giannis does that makes him so special and dominant out there, then you like add like this layer of Dame, who's like one of like a handful of players that when he steps across half court, he's in range. He can shoot it from
Right.
anywhere. And
Yeah.
it's like that in of itself is like there is no like, kind of let the offense kind of, you know what I mean? He brings the ball up past half court, and then all of a sudden it's like you have to like have your head on a swivel because he'll just shoot it from like the logo.
Yeah. And you're in a situation, right, where he's been on a team where he's been the guy.
Yeah.
And the next best guy on the Trailblazers roster was like not just the next best guy. Like there were like 10 steps between each one of those guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I didn't see the Bucks move coming. They kind of came out of nowhere.
Mhm.
I like the move on some level to be able to get, for the Trailblazers to kind of reload and restart that process for them. But the Bucks also, and Rich and I kind of talked about this after the show last, on Thursday night. They lost a lot of bench pieces too. They gave up a
Yeah.
lot of bench pieces that, listen, I'm sure they're probably not going to be short on guys wanting to take the vet minimum to come and be the, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th guys on the bench for
Yeah.
that team. But they lost a lot of production off the bench in the guys that they traded.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. And it's, like I think and I think that's happened before. We've seen kind of teams use that as like a recipe of like, let's acquire the star and we'll figure it all out later.
Right.
And that's probably what they're thinking,
Right.
And like you said, that's a good point. It's like then that's like when guys come in, for the vet minimum, and I'm sure they're gonna find some, some guys that can step into those roles that'll help them
Right.
in those roles. But one of the things, Dame's obviously the biggest piece, but I mean, it was a 3-team trade. Like the Blazers ended up with DeAndre Ayton, and that's not a bad piece of business, I think, for a team in their situation.
I mean, he's going to step in and be the centerpiece to be able to kind of, be that low post presence, which, to be honest, they really didn't have.
No.
And I think the Suns are top heavy with Durant and Booker, but now they have what feels like a deeper bench too, because they gave up guys when they make the Durant deal.
Right. And they had Bradley Beal. So it was like that was another.
That's right.
Yeah. So
I forgot about that.
So they have like their third guy of like a trio of stars. And I think about, like you mentioned, like about Ayton kind of being like one of the vocal points of that offense for the Blazers. It's like I think one thing that could actually be kind of fun is like working with Scoot and the like pick and roll could be fun for them.
Ooh,
like
okay.
it's kind of like a young duo. They have some other pieces too, like Simons and Sharp. Like they do have like, and then they still have Jeremy Grant, who they're probably going to flip at some point.
I got to imagine that he gets flipped to a contender at some point during the season.
Yeah, so he's another element of, so they'll add more assets that way, and then of course like getting Drew Holiday back, he's going to be moved on here eventually. So we'll wait and see what happens.
Listen,
there.
just to kind of jump right into that, right? You got all the guys in the know, the Wojs and the Shams, talking about the fact that the immediate reaction for the Trailblazers is to then take take Drew Holiday and then flip him, right? Because he doesn't necessarily fit into that young rebuilding roster profile that they're trying to build.
Right.
So, and the Sixers are kind of right in the mix with, the albatross that is James Harden. It seems like you've got that guy that you could put your hat in the ring for that conversation to be able to make that trade. And it almost makes the process stuff come full circle.
Yeah.
Right. Drew Holiday was one of the first trades that they made when they were kind of kickstarting that process. I think it might only be prophetic to kind of bring him back and, try to put him in charge of this offense. And really, it could really open up a lot of stuff for them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always, I always loved Drew Holiday's game. You're talking about a guy, 5 times all defense, NBA all defense, 3 times first team all defense, all-star. He's been a champion. He's gone on to have a wonderful career and would be a great fit here. I think, like, beyond the completing the process part, which is a lot of fun. It's like also the basketball fit seems to be a really nice fit between Maxey and Embiid, because he can distribute the basketball. He adds something on the perimeter defensively. There's other elements that he would help bring. He would help kind of change the complexion of the offense because they haven't really had
Yeah.
anybody like him. And then, the on-court leader aspect of it, like the leadership elements of it as well. And to add to boot, him and Harden make around the same money. I'm pretty sure. I was looking at Sports
which
Track
is
earlier. I think their
which
contracts are pretty similar.
they're right in the same neighborhood, right? And
Yeah.
the Sixers Daily, right? They put out a mock trade.
Mhm.
So in this mock trade, right, there's a lot of moving parts, but the Sixers end up with Drew Holiday, Norman Powell. So they get Holiday from the Blazers, they get Norman Powell from the Clippers.
Mhm.
The Clippers end up with James Harden and PJ Tucker and Furkan Korkmaz, which they get that veteran presence that they want on their team. And then the Blazers end up with Marcus Morris, Nick Batum, Amir Coffey, Brandon Boston, and then the 2028 first round pick, and then multiple second round picks. So so they're getting a little bit of veteran presence, but a lot of youth.
Mhm.
That it seems like that's really just all the entire director, the direction that team's going in. I feel like that trade kind of works. It puts everybody in a beneficial scenario.
Yeah, everybody kind of makes out in that
Mhm.
deal. The Blazers kind of get. I'm sure a lot of those veteran players are on expiring contracts, so they can either flip them later on or just let them expire and walk. I'm sure the draft capital. I think Boston's a young guy. Is Boston a young guy? Amir Coffey. I think
I'm gonna
they're
look it up.
young players.
I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna look
Yeah.
it up right now while you're talking.
So, yeah, like that would work out for Portland. I think that they would be interested in something like that and offset the money. Harden gets what he wants to go to
Mhm.
LA if that was his end goal. Although, like Tucker going in that deal too, like, and I think about like Kawhi and PG being there, and I'm just like, man, like they're like running a retirement home there, like with that roster. Yeah,
It's
because
true.
Kawhi and PG don't even play. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so
It's the kind of thing where I look at that and go, like, I know you're trying, Clippers, but like the West is so stacked.
yeah,
They've got they're very, very top heavy with the talent. I just don't know. I don't know,
yeah,
how that works. They do that. Maybe they feel like they need that veteran presence. They need a team that's built for the playoffs. Not that I feel like at this point James Harden fits into that role because that's kind of when he shows up the least.
mhm,
But maybe they believe that the combination of those three veteran guys at the top end of their roster, when you combine Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and PJ Tucker, or not PJ Tucker, but Paul George,
yeah,
maybe that on some level they feel like that gives them the ammo to maybe compete with your Phoenixes, your Denvers. I don't know, just the athleticism that I saw from Denver
yeah.
last year was really impressive. And just to go in, so Amir Coffey is 26.
Okay,
And I had it up here. Brandon Boston is 21.
okay, yeah,
So they're young. They're
yeah,
young and they're in their 20s.
yeah. I mean, like they can play in the roles for you.
Yeah. Oh,
in
absolutely.
Portland.
They could be guys on the bench. They could be guys that could come off, and be productive.
Mhm.
Especially, listen, I feel like everybody on the Blazers is going to get a shot.
Yeah, yeah. And I look at what Sam Presti's done in Oklahoma City with like all those
Really impressive.
assets and young players and stuff. And I think if you're looking to kickstart a process there, it's just like that's the blueprint. I think if you're, just acquire every young asset you can find
Yeah,
and
I mean,
all the picks, like, they've done a nice job with that. And, they were even able to identify a young player who developed into a star in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
he
So,
is wildly impressive.
Yeah. So, what I think that's kind of like the blueprint if you're in a situation like
Mhm.
Portland, to look at what Oklahoma City's done, and um, with their kind of young nucleus, and they're still building that there. But I last year I think the Thunder were a lot better than people had anticipated. So
Real bad. And
um,
remember, the kid that they draft, Chet Holmgren is a
mhm,
guy that gets injured early, so he's going to be coming back. They're going to add
yep,
him to that roster. But
yep,
I'm looking at their incoming draft picks. So, and the second round draft picks are kind of miscellaneous capital.
yeah,
But like in the 2024 draft, they have 3 first round picks. In the 2025, they have 4. And then in 2026, they have 3. 2027, they have 2. 28, they have their own. 29, they have 2. In the midst of all that, Oklahoma City also has like a zillion second round picks that I had to scroll past.
yeah.
You're right. The way that they're building that, they're really kind of prime for, when they are ready to pounce and feel like they're going to be competitive, they're going to have the ammunition to be able to either, package a lot of those picks to be
Mhm.
able to get a veteran guy that can be impactful on the roster, or they're putting themselves in a position to continue to restock that quote unquote farm system of
Sure.
young talent because of where they are in the West,
Yeah.
right? Because the West is so top heavy, they're going to be on the back fringes of that playoff conversation for a little while,
Yeah.
which puts them in the conversation for the lottery picks, which makes their assets more valuable. It's
Right.
just you're right. It's a really smart way of kind of going about it. They just have to hit. They got to hit on picks.
Yeah.
Kind of unlike the luck that we had here.
Yeah.
The pick for me that always kind of gets away is the Bridges pick. That pick,
Yeah.
because I feel like where they were in that playoff run, they needed him. They needed that guy to plug into that roster,
Mhm.
to be that athletic wing that has been so elusive for this team. And you sold him for a bag of peanuts that I
Yeah.
hope, Zaire doesn't touch, because I don't want him to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
We should make light of that. Tree nut allergies are
they're nothing to mess around with. I
they're
feel
nothing to
like
mess
that's
around with. Yeah.
no. Let's not. No, I don't want anybody to like. I have no ill will towards Zaire Smith, right? I know he was a Brett Brown. That was like that miscellaneous time when Brett Brown was the GM, and that whole
That was a
disaster
weird
story.
time. Yeah.
It's a very weird time. The whole Jerry Colangelo burner accounts and his
Oh,
like
geez.
just too much weird stuff. Like I need someone to like deep dive a 30 ESPN 30 for 30 on that whole scenario.
I was getting real quick on that. I was getting at the time I had a subscription to ESPN magazine at the time.
Ooh, okay.
And during that time they did a big feature on like the Colangelo burner account ordeal. And the cover, I don't know who was behind the design cover, but if you're out there, like if you're still working for ESPN, you deserve a raise. It was like they made it like it looked like a CSI poster with like Embiid, Simmons, Colangelo, like all their faces on it. And
Oh
it
my
was
God.
I wish I kept it. Like it was it was hysterical. The cover, and the story was really good. It was a whole feature on that whole fiasco at the time. But that popped in my head when you said that, because I always remember that
God.
ESPN magazine cover.
I'm trying to look it up now. I'm gonna see if I can find it. But the way that this team is right now, like and then the last piece before we take a break, right? They do bring in Kelly Oubre Jr., which is I feel like a good move for this
Yeah,
team. It's finally getting an athletic wing, but you're also getting a guy that has never met a shot he didn't like. So
Yeah.
he's a volume guy.
Mhm.
Played with the Hornets, in recent past where, he was going to be able to get the opportunity to get the ball because of the roster that he's on. But I feel like he's a guy that is going to, he's going to be your 6th, 7th guy off the bench. He's going to be the guy that you bring in,
Mhm.
to be that 4 or 5 minute volume guy, be able to get him at, it's that athletic wing, but he's also going to bring that kind of veteran presence.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had talked at like on this show on the end of season Sixers show that we did.
Mhm.
And I think you may have brought him up. We were talking about guys that could be good fits this summer. We did talk, I think,
That's
briefly
right.
about Kelly Oubre Jr. So if you haven't heard it, go back and go through the archives. Go give us another
There we
listen
go.
because we talk about all the we know our stuff here. So it's this is how it works. But yeah, Kelly Oubre, I think like the perimeter shooting, as you said, the athleticism. We talked about that, about needing the kind of like more athleticism on the wing. He fulfills that, right? And then on top of that, I think one of the more, I'm always under the impression in any sport, right? Like there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal, especially for a guy that averaged 20 last year.
No, oh God, no, not at all.
Yeah. So, 1 year deal for a guy that can kind of give you those, give you some minutes, play a little bit, and not be like a liability out there, can actually help you.
Right.
That's a good part of it. But
Mark, I got something special for you.
oh, is this it?
I got
Yes,
it.
that was the story. Yep.
Just
CSI
like
Philly. This is like I thought this was brilliant.
it does make you laugh, but
Yeah.
like it does give you a reminder about how far this team has come.
Yeah.
Because never did I ever. I've told Rich a bunch of times. The false I have an idea that I'm trying to on some level pitch to someone that can do a 30 for 30.
Yeah.
Like I also need one on Ben Simmons and Carson Wentz called the false messiahs.
Yeah.
Like I need someone to deep dive into that one too, because that was those two basically imploded on each other simultaneously when we thought like they were going to be like the next best thing, and now like Carson Wentz can't even sniff a job.
No.
And Ben Simmons has, in terms of the NBA, almost evaporated.
Yeah. And he's like, what's his name? Like Simmons is, he's making almost 40 million. And I mean, he's supposed to play this year. And like, I think the Nets are saying that he's healthy. So, and that they're expecting him to, I guess, contribute in some capacity. That'll be interesting because maybe he's able to kind of like recapture some of the things that he did well, but he's never going to be the player that when you coming into the league that we all like looked at and like, man, these ball skills, the vision and to be so big and like athletically gifted. I don't know that that's ever going to come together at this point in that way, but
God, it's just I just don't. I'm like almost like without words. It's just wild to think like you have a guy that's athletically gifted as he is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there were also signs of this, leading up into the draft where people, they saw the athletic talent and you can't pass that up. But like if the Sixers had drafted, for instance, right, the big, the conversation at the time is between him and Brandon Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
If they had drafted Brandon Ingram, it probably would have this city would have burned the Sixers alive,
right?
Because he was far and away the number 1 overall guy. He was the guy, right? You pair a young, athletic, 6'11", Magic Johnson-esque point guard, a guy who's just going to run around and be athletic and be defensive and be athletically gifted, right? First team all defense bunch of times,
Mhm.
and then nothing.
Yeah.
It just is wild. And to talk about his contract. So this year he's going to make 37.8.
Yeah.
Next year he's going to make 40.3. You're going to pay this dude in the neighborhood of $77 million over the course of the next 2 years.
Yeah.
It's God. It's
That's
just
a lot of money.
it's a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
Mark, in your heart of hearts,
Yes.
before we go to the commercial, does the Drew Holiday, James Harden, does a James Harden deal get done before training camp?
I'm gonna say yeah. I'm gonna say
Okay.
I think the Dame, and this happens all the time, I feel like, but like Dame was the talk. He was the trade chip this summer, even with the Harden stuff that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody was waiting for this Dame Lillard shoe to drop, and I think now that it has, it might like break up some of this like congestion as far as like the trade market goes and things like that. I'm sure the Blazers are not in any real rush to like to deal him right this second. But I would imagine that everybody would want to get that done. Drew's an older player, so I think he probably wants to move on to get another chance to win a championship, and then we know
I feel
that
bad. He's a guy that had all intentions of finishing his career in Milwaukee, like playing out this contract and just retiring.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's ready to move on to get another shot at it, and then for Harden, that this has been him and Morey have had their public battle, and
did you see the pictures from his party in Houston?
I did.
They had essentially like what looked like the boxing ring girls walking around with these little marquees, that just said Daryl Morey's a liar.
Yeah.
I for me, Mark, I hope that it does. I hope that it does go through. So and it's kind of essentially like the Ben Simmons deal when they did that, during the last, it was 2 seasons ago, but they were able to go into training camp without having that headache of like, what's happening? Is he going to show up? He shows up. He's wearing sweatpants. He's got a phone in his pocket. Like, kicked out of practice. So last year they didn't have any of that drama. Right now, we're essentially in that same spot where all those guys are just gonna be like, I'm tired of answering questions about James Harden. He's not here. We're and of course the reporters are going to do their job and they're going to keep asking. But for the team's sake, I really hope that they get to start the year with a roster of guys that they can kind of build around. And, and we'll talk about this on another episode, but I think the importance of having Nick Nurse as the coach moving forward in terms of player development is definitely something that I think it may be the most underestimated thing that people aren't really talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's going to be his job to pull this all together. And you have the pieces and things like that. And if they were to get a Drew Holiday deal done and he comes back to Philadelphia, because he's highly sought after, there's other teams interested. So
Lakers, Celtics, Bulls, Heat, they're all teams that, and anybody in the know was mentioned.
Yeah. So, and it's like one of those things where, highly sought after player for good reason, but for the Sixers, if they're able to complete that trade, Harden goes outward, all of a sudden, for as critical as we've been, you add Kelly Oubre Jr., 1-year deal, averaged 20 last year. You got Drew now coming in. All of a sudden, I feel a lot better about like the situation, and I'm kind of like, all right, let's roll. Like I want to see what this group looks like.
Like if I can get a starting 5 that includes, some combination of like the graphic that I'm looking at right now has Drew Holiday, Maxey, Norman Powell, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid.
Yeah. Pretty good.
I'll ride with that. And then you bring Kelly Oubre off the bench. You
Right.
bring, you can bring any number of guys. And maybe the most important part is that you're getting rid of Furkan Korkmaz.
Right. He finally, after his
Finally.
170th trade request, he has now made his way to.
Oh God, that's too funny. Well, listen, we're gonna play some stuff. We're gonna play some commercial breaks on the back end of this. We're gonna have our hockey episode, Drunk on the Court or Drunk on the Ice. So episode 144. So we'll be back right after the commercial breaks.
Von C Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000 square foot microbrewery with a 2,500 square foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer gardens in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
La Torrens curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Go to la-touraine.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.
Iverson, wow, what a fake on Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Oh, but we're back. It's Drunk on the Ice. Now we're drunk on the ice. It's episode 144. Mark, the preseason has started. Talk to me. Talk to me about where you're at.
Well, I think, you know, going through the first two games, the first game against the Devils was
Oh.
very, you know,
Oof.
like I was, you know, like if you're going to sit down and write, for example, right? Like it's, and you want to talk about you know, it's, we're more looking, it's not about the win loss thing as much as it is. You're looking at guys like individual basis, like what guys are doing, but nobody played well. Like they looked awful.
Yeah.
And, you know, the second game
Awful is an understatement.
yeah, and the Devils are contenders, and you know, but even so, I you know, I think that first game was like, I'm trying to think back to like guys that, you know, someone who stuck out a possible way. I can't think of anybody.
Yeah, that one. And listen, it's probably a good thing that it was the one complaint that I'm going to start off with the preseason hockey. It's not easy to find.
No, it is not.
It's
No.
it's the preseason hockey. You would think the way that like preseason NFL games are handled, right? There's a local broadcast that takes on the network,
Right.
and they just broadcast the games. It's really easy to find. The first Flyers Devils game, if I remember correctly, it was available online only.
Yes.
And then the second game with the Islanders was only on radio.
well, the
Or
Islanders
was it on?
the Islanders website carried it.
Oh, okay. So it was
yeah.
available online, but
So you
like
could
on
catch
the
it
team
online.
website.
Yeah, on the team website, on their team website.
Right.
And they're kind of hard to like, they're hard to watch, like in terms of like the Islanders broadcast. It looked like somebody was like following the puck with their phone. Like I was having a, you know, like
I can't.
I was texting a
the-
buddy of mine, and I'm like, I had to like look away a couple times. I was like, I'm getting dizzy. Like I like trying to keep out, the camera's like jerky and it's moving around. And I'm just like, this is not the way to watch a hockey game.
Well, and it's not like you're just saying like, oh, like my buddy across the country, I want to watch his kid play peewee hockey. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, here, FaceTime me the rink. Like we're talking about like this is professional. This is the highest level of professional hockey in this country, in North America.
Yeah.
Like you can't tell me that whatever the local network, the production value is not there to be able to just say, hey, like I'm not saying you have to send the whole crew and the whole truck, but
Yeah.
like, can we maybe put like one guy on either end, like,
Yeah.
and you know we'll handle it from a
Yeah.
production standpoint from that way. Like it just, that's my complaint. My complaint about like because if there's one fan base that is like, this is the only team I follow, it's the Flyers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are people that will go out of their way to go out and find where this team is. But
Yeah.
like the fact that like those three different, you know, and last night the game with the Bruins is on the NHL network.
Right.
Like it shouldn't be that hard to find.
Right.
There should be, even if it's on, like, even if you say like all the NHL game, all the preseason games are going to be available on NHL.com.
Hmm.
Great. If I want to watch a preseason game, I go to NHL.com.
Right.
Great. I'm there. Cool. But the fact that like one game was on a Flyer, it's on the home team website. The other game, it's on the away team's website. This one's on the NHL network.
Yeah.
Like, let's not make this complicated. Like,
Right.
Because there are people that do want to tune in and watch it.
Right. And yeah, I mean, they're not easy to find. And,
No.
you know, so that was, you know, and you know, for me, like I went out of my way to find that Devils game, and they, you know, and then they get their doors blown off, you know, but
You're like, wait, I'm actually going to sit down and invest some time.
yeah.
And then it's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh God.
You know,
So that game, right? That game, I did get some perspective, right?
Okay.
So Jason Martinez, the guy, he does the Flyers Daily, is a good listen as far as like giving those like daily recaps of,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so, the thing that he was kind of focusing on coming out of that was, he had a conversation with Scott Lawton talking about, the leadership and the because he's now, one of the more tenured, athletes on that team.
Yeah.
Just talk to me about, like, is there anything to glean from this preseason that we didn't already know?
I think with the first two games, it was like the Devils game, I think was just kind of one of those things you throw the whole game out. And even from like an evaluation standpoint, things looked a lot better, even though they had lost to the Islanders the other night.
Agreed.
It looked a lot better. The process looked a lot better. The Flyers didn't dress a lot of skill players in that game, but it was more of like a grinding type of like, a lot of board battles and things like that. I think from like, with you were mentioning like Scott Lawton talking about it and taking things away from it, like the Flyers have, like, especially on defense, there's spots open to be won. And I think that the organization is looking for young players to fulfill those roles, or at least see where some of those players are in their development, where, okay, maybe they're not ready right now, but a half a season in Lehigh Valley, maybe they'll be ready mid-season, something like that. So we're like, it's a full blown like evaluation process for some of these guys, especially on defense. I look at a player like coming into this camp, Tyson Forrester, who finished the season with the Flyers.
Yeah.
He's not looked great in these games. And he's like battling for a spot. Now, on the flip side of that, a kid coming in the camp that everybody was kind of intrigued by was Bobby Brink. He has a great game last night. He wins them the game. Goal and an assist, and then the shootout goal.
Yeah, having not seen a lot of him.
Mm-hmm.
Really impressed. I mean, I'm watching the game last night, and I'm watching him how he's negotiating his shifts. Like, I was really impressed. And then the fact that he was one of the first couple of guys that they go to for that shootout, and the goal that he has in the shootout, just really, really impressive. Just I liked what I saw. So for me, like, that's a guy that I'm going to, for the next three, they got 3 more preseason games coming up. He's a guy I'm going to keep my eye on.
Yeah. And I think he inserted himself pretty well in that game, and he was playing with Morgan Frost and Owen Tippett, 2 guys that are, on the team. And, he inserted himself pretty well. He got power play time. And it wasn't just like the goal, the assist, and then the shootout goal. It was the fact that like the power play, like, it was on the assist was on the power play. And it was kind of like a tic-tac-toe type of play. He gets the puck, and instead of just like ripping it across the ice, he kind of takes a moment, digests the play, freezes the defenseman and the goaltender, finds Ryan Poling back door, and it's an empty netter slam dunk for Poling. It was like a really smart, crafty play.
Right.
He steps right down the chute on the goal and like just wires a puck past Linus Allmark, who's a good goalie. Like, he's a serious goalie, in the league. And, that shot would have beaten any, goaltender, that point blank like that. It was a great shot. And then the shootout goal was really impressive because of the poise, the patience with the puck, and to like pull it out on your backhand like that and like roof it like he did is like really, really like that's difficult. You could very easily like scoop that puck like over the net and miss it by like, on that backhand play.
But you could miss that one by 10 feet.
Yeah, you could like, roof it up into the safety netting, and people would be like, what the hell was that? Like, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
you can look really bad. But the patience and all with that one was, he inserted himself really well. That was a really good game for him. And as you said, like I'm sure a lot of people, including the Flyers, are going to look at him pretty closely in these next couple games because I'm sure he earned himself another game or two.
I was going to say he's at least earned that more prominent spot in these next 3 preseason games.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have they got the game tonight with the Devils, and then they got Monday with the Bruins again, and then they got the Islanders on Thursday, and then they kick off the season on October 12th.
Right.
I just I'm going into this season with legit 0 expectations.
Yep.
I'm going in just to see, out of curiosity, what this young talent pool looks like.
Yeah.
And to see the guys that are going to elevate themselves, guys that are going to be, make themselves productive, and see what value they present as they start to slow build this thing back. That's the part to me that I'm most excited about, because I'm looking at this team going, I haven't had this in a while, because we've been on this kind of like seesaw of the organization talking about, no, we're retooling. We're going to be relevant. We're going to be, and then not.
Right.
And it's nice to have that turnover. You have the turnover in management over the off season. You're now able to, everybody's on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
The team, the ownership, upper management, all of that is all going in the right direction.
Yeah. And one thing that you said there, Don, was that was, I hear from a lot of people that I talk to, they say the same thing about, hey, I don't have any expectations for this year, but it kind of like rejuvenated people. I think it
really did.
Because they're saying that the people that I'm talking, like people that I talk to randomly or that talk to me about it, family, friends and all, they're like, hey, I'm not really expecting much from them this year, but I'm excited for them to start. And I think it's the transparency, right? It's the organization coming forward saying, hey, this might not look that great the next couple of years, but this is where we're at and this is how we're doing it. And, I think the fan base appreciates that transparency with that. There's going to be reasons to watch them, this year. There's going to be a mixture of young players. There's guys coming back this year that look like they could be a part of like a solution moving forward. Owen Tippett had a great year last year. He played well last night, I thought.
He did as well. But
and,
that play late in the game where he gets he really kind of fights through that breakaway, ends up getting the penalty shot. The penalty shot isn't super impressive, but love to see the battle to be able to put himself in a position where the defensive player the defenseman doesn't have an option but to physically create the barrier between himself and the goalie, which, puts him in a position to be able to get the penalty shot.
Yeah.
But that was impressive from a guy who's young, but is also battling, for more ice time on a team that he really does have an opportunity to be able to get as much time as he's earning.
Yeah. And for a player like Tippett, it's like, he had a good year last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now this year he has to prove that he could do it again. And, last night in particular was, he played with Morgan Frost and Bobby Brink, and Brink played the right wing because I believe he's an actual right winger. And Tippett, who's also a right winger, by trade, he moved over to the left side. That's not always easy for guys. Some guys struggle with that.
No, it's not.
And but I didn't see any discernible difference in his game. He played well. And some guys can do it. Some guys can do it pretty seamlessly. And it's part of what adds to their value is that they can play, either wing side, or some guys can play all 3 forward positions, which is even more valuable. But he played well. And as you said, on that shootout, or the penalty shot goal opportunity, that was completely created by his willingness to kind of work through the checking there, drew that penalty. I mean, it wasn't like, he wasn't clean all in on
Right.
in on alone on the goaltender. He actually had to work through some checking there to get to it.
Right.
And, so that was encouraging too. And so there are some guys coming back here that are kind of in that, they're not in their early 20s anymore, but they're in their mid 20s, like Tippett and Frost. Like, we want to see if they're going to if they can do it again this year.
Right. That's typically where you see that elevation in play. That
Yeah.
I'm not 21, but I'm also not 30.
Yeah.
Like that mid 20s is where those guys. It's almost like a confluence of experience and maturity and gameplay. They all kind like stuff starts to make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talk to me about the goalie play. Because you get. I think we all kind of understand, right? Carter Hart is the number one goalie on this team.
Yes.
But talk to me about the guys behind him, right? Because you've got Sam Erickson, you've got Cal Peterson, you've got Felix Sandstrom, you've got Carson Bjornsson. You've got guys in the pipeline, right?
Yeah.
Which does kind of open up people's eyes to some conversations. This Carter Hart is we've talked about it before. Is he a guy that ends up getting moved?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about the guys behind Carter Hart.
Yeah, I think like that's another full blown camp battle going on right now. It's like the goaltending, and I thought last night, I mean, for Felix Sandstrom, he didn't play last night, but I thought he inserted himself pretty well in the Islanders game. He did play some in that game, and he's coming off a year where he was not that great, and there was a lot of ups and downs for him last year with the Flyers, and they really had him in that backup role because they didn't really have anybody else until Sandstrom or Urson came up, and they started playing Sam Urson, who I know they're high on. The Flyers like Sam Urson quite a bit,
right?
And he and Cal Peterson, they split time last night. That was a tough game, I think, for a young goalie like Urson, who early on in the game, he didn't see a lot of work. I think the Bruins through the first 8 minutes of the first period had one shot on goal.
Yeah.
So that's tough for
as a goalie. Yes, you're that inactivity can kind of lead to some complacency.
Yeah. So you're kind of just and then they get a power play, and then you got David Pastrnak ripping pucks at you. He scored 60 goals last year. It's
the between that Pasta Man is just it's on another planet.
Yeah.
And you have a ton of talent on that roster.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one part about last season that kind of blows my mind. It's how they fell so hard so fast in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it may have been one of those classic, they peaked early. They were playing really, really well. Just a tad too early in the season. Now they're in a completely different, Boston's in a completely different situation. Patrice Bergeron retired. I don't think David Krejci's back. So that's their number 1 and 2 centers, just up and gone.
Yeah.
So even though they have some elite play driving wingers like David Pastrnak, they just named Brad Marchand captain. These guys are still great players. It's just that I don't know how great the center play is going to be this year, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But they're still a good team, and
most definitely.
But so that was tough. I think going back to the game, that was tough for Urson, to step in. But when he did see work, I thought he looked good. He looked sharp. And then Cal Peterson came in, who was dreadful in the first preseason game. He played.
No lies detected there.
No, he was excellent in this game against Boston. I mean, he made I think it was a 2-on-1. Made a post-to-post save, blocker save, sprawling to one side, and he did have that leaky goal. I think that he went down in the butterfly. It was on the power play. I think it was in the slot, and the puck kind of trickled through him. You know, you don't like to see that for goaltenders. Like, you know, it's kind of like the old football adage, right? You know, you get your hands on it, you got to catch it. I think like for a goalie, you know, if it hits you, you got to stop it, right? Like, so, yeah, so like that was a tough one, but I mean, he made some really, really great saves, like really kind of showed off his athleticism and, you know, his hockey sense, or his, you know, his crease sense to kind of get post to post and anticipate those seam passes. So he played well. And I think for the camp, like, I mean, Peterson's like one of those guys where like he comes over in the Provorov trade and, you know, he's making a lot of money for, you know, I think another 2 seasons or something like that. Flyers have a ton of goalies. So it's like kind of like, where does he kind of fit? But he's kind of playing for his NHL life at this point, I think. You know, he had a really challenging year last year, and he's got to come in here and prove that he can play at this level still. And, you know, and he's got some, you know, he's got a good young goalie who I think has starter potential in Sam Ersson, also battling for a spot with him. So the goalie battle will be interesting, I think, right up to, because I've seen moments from all 3 of them. So,
yeah, you're not wrong. I think for me, I'm looking again. I'm on a whole wait and see approach. Like,
yeah,
I just want to see guys that want to add and make positive contributions to the roster. I'm not looking for. I'm not. You're never going to hear me on here being critical of anything on ice because they're young. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to earn the right to play, and they're going to earn that ice time based on the leadership that's in place with the organization and the leadership that's going to be in place with Tortorella. I wasn't on board. You know, you remember there were episodes where I was very critical of the fact that, like, I thought Tortorella came in a year too early. It really affected, you know, they probably won a bunch of games that they really didn't need to.
Yeah.
But I've kind of come around to kind of realize that, like, you can't start to rebuild that roster without having the leadership in place to really, that accountability piece is huge. And it's huge for that young population of players that's going to be, you know, if you want to build that core, that's going to be something that you're going to need to have in place. You can't just insert that later on in that process.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's a big part of it for the Flyers, I think, is like, they're very culture conscious. I think like when they were, the last few seasons, I think they felt, well, not like last few seasons, but really for a while now, that somewhere along the way that, you know, accountability or whatever you'd like to call it, it kind of was falling a little bit by the wayside. And that's just not how, you know, historically the Flyers do business. You know what I mean? Like, this has always kind of been like the culture element was always a big part of it for them. Definitely. And, you know, so the fact that they're trying to restore that now, I think is a good thing. I think it has people are excited again about them, even if it, you know, this summer really kind of went well for them. I think, like, as far as moving guys along that either didn't want to be here or were not good pieces, like not a good fit for what they were trying to do. The Michkov piece was super exciting, you know, to add that. And,
that's a good transition, because I was about to ask you, like, I need our we need our daily fix. What's the latest on Michkov and his play, you know, over in Russia?
I think he's done pretty well. I mean, he ended up his original program that he was with, SKA, they loaned him out to Sochi, which is where he had played last year.
Right.
Sochi is not as good as the team that is loaning him out. But he's going to get more opportunities to play. And he wasn't getting those opportunities for SKA, the team that he was originally with. Gotcha. And so on Sochi, he kind of gets the opportunities to kind of do he gets to kind of play and not kind of get to play. He does get to play, and he could, he's out there creating and things like that.
Right.
But from all accounts, everything that I've seen, he looks like he's played pretty well. I know the other day I saw that Sochi didn't play that well. I think they got blown out in the game,
Yeah.
but it happens, and they're not a great team, Sochi, but he's he's playing every day, and I think at this point, that's all we can kind of hope for with him, is that he's playing every day. So,
yeah, listen, the only way that young guy's going to get better is by playing, by making, you go in and you make those mistakes and you figure out what works. But
yeah, exactly.
Mark, any final thoughts on the way out?
Yeah, I'm just ready for for football here today and tomorrow. It's probably going to be what my day's filled of.
There we go.
I gotta clean the house, dude. That's another thing. Hopefully,
Listen,
in time for
it's those fall. It's those fall things, right? I'm excited. It's a really good confluence of sports, right? You're going to have pretty much every professional sport, all happening simultaneously. You mix in the college football.
Mhm.
It's a really great place to be.
Yeah.
Mark, before we head out, tell them where they can find your podcast, Water Cooler Talk.
Yeah, we're on Spotify and Facebook, Instagram, and X. Which is still weird for me to say. My brain just wants to say Twitter.
When you type it in, right, the X is in the top left-hand corner, but it still says twitter.com.
Yeah. So and then I'm always getting corrected by people. They're always like, it's X now, and I'm like, it comes up Twitter. So I mean,
does it really matter?
Yeah,
like if I call it X, if you call it Twitter, does it really matter?
Yeah. So you can find the podcast on Eli Musk's website. I'll just say that. Like his website, everything he's talking about. Like my podcast is on there. You can see it there. But we're gonna be back for that in a couple weeks. I'm gonna have Mike Gilletto on from Fired Up. We're gonna do a Metropolitan Division preview. So we're gonna go through every team in the Metro.
I love it.
And we're gonna do that before the season kicks off. The Ramos Roundup will be back. I'll have that for the website by Monday. We'll get that up and going again.
Listen, you're gonna have a busy week writing.
Yeah, there's so much. That's why I have to do it as I'm hitting.
You got to get something on the docket because you're gonna have you got the Eagles game Sunday. You're gonna have the Phillies kickoff Monday, or the Phillies are gonna kick off their game Tuesday.
Yeah. So, I got to get everybody in there for that, and we'll get that going again because a little sidetracked, a little busy lately, so not enough time to get it in, but we're gonna get back to that.
Life happens, right?
Life happens.
So listen, on the way out, go Flyers. We'll talk to you next time. Later.
Peace.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.